Hello and welcome to the Otakus After Dark, the podcast by adult weebs for adult weebs. Grab your drink of choice and sit back and relax as we talk about Sweat and Soap, as well as Watakoi on today's podcast. I'm Dom Hoozle, and I'm joined here with Exiled Sentinel, aka Danielle,
Hello.
and the ever wonderful Emily.
Hi.
So, yeah, this is a repeat. For those who don't know of this episode, we had already recorded it, and Premiere decided it was no longer needed. So we don't have it anymore, but we're going to try our best to recreate all of our wonderful talk for that episode. So
Really?
we're going to start out with Sweat and Soap. Does anybody particularly want to start with Sweat and Soap?
Well, right now, big letters, spoiler alert. We're going to talk about all the physical volumes of both series. So if you have not read it, please stop here, turn back. If you don't care, then keep listening.
It's a good thing you said that because I completely blanked on that. Like, I completely forgot that we're going to be
Yeah.
spoiling.
It's like,
so-
all right, we've done this before. Everybody knows.
I'll be
Yeah.
like, put a big spoiler alert on the screen right now across our faces. But yeah, so we should start out with our favorite part of the book.
I love that. Does anyone want to start in particular, or?
I guess I'll start with mine because it's pretty. Because I just looked it up 2 seconds ago before we started. So my favorite scene of Sweat and Soap is from the first volume, the last page of chapter 5, which is, and I like one particular panel in it. So I don't actually like the whole scene. I like the one panel, just because.
One panel.
Well, just because. So again, I look at everything like critique it art wise as I'm reading as well. It's just something that's been ingrained in me. And the way they arch their backs while they're doing the do, and just the the figure's whole body anatomy just feels so real, and it really I feel like you can get really emotionally into the scene where you kind of see her looking up at him, and then he's kind of looking down at her, and they're kind of coming together and enjoying doing this act together.
Right.
So
Why do I not remember you bringing this up at all last time? I don't remember. I'm like, okay.
Well, it's just, so for me, it's a very emotion heavy scene because it conveys all of the emotion so perfectly with minimal dialogue. There's 4 dialogue boxes, and they're little monologue things. They don't actually say anything to each other. But even if those dialogue boxes weren't there, you could tell what emotions they were feeling, and that's why that was my favorite scene.
I mean, re-going through it, I can definitely see what you're talking about, and I have to say I agree with that. I think it's really cute. I don't have a lot to say on that in particular, but yeah.
That's fine.
It's I didn't think about that, but now that you say that, I can see it.
Right.
So what are you
That's
guys'
exactly how I feel.
favorite scenes?
My favorite scene comes from book 5, which is, as of recording this, the latest book out. And it's the end of chapter 42 into 43, if you really want specific areas to look for. But I really love the scene of our couple apartment hunting with their real estate agent Urasawa, and he's the kind of guy who's super confident in his job, who can read a person just by looking at him, and he's top seller in the company. And the couple walks in and he's like, oh yeah, I can see they're the typical kind of pushovers. This is their first apartment together. I can get this whatever deal. through with them and I will reach my goal for the month. And they go to like their first apartment, and I think at the first apartment it was Asako like pulls out like a tape measure to like start taking down specific numbers for like the refrigerator and all that, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't expect her to be that kind of person to like go through all like these like important points in getting an apartment." Um, so he's like, "Okay, maybe she's not a pushover in that aspect." And they figure out that the first place isn't good for them, and then the second place they go to seems like it's a good place until um Kotaro like sniffs around, and we know how great his nose is. And he goes to the bathroom only to realize that the bathroom window is facing like the exit exhaust fan for like a restaurant. And he's like, "Well, I guess it's fine. Like I can deal with it if the window's closed, but it'll mess up like the soap rack that you want to get," where he's obviously thinking about her. And like as this like couple like come together and like try to like meet in the middle of like what they want for their apartment, it's like really cute and heartwarming because it's their first place together, and it's obviously deepening their relationship. And the guy Urasawa is just like, wow, like I guess I really can't judge people by how they look. Um, and he's like, I can't believe I'm going soft over this. And then he offers them like an apartment that hasn't gone up onto the market just yet and helps them out. And he's like, man, I guess I should think back about it more and try to take it as it comes. And I thought that was
I
really
agree.
cute.
That is also part of, like, I have two favorite scenes, and like the whole house hunting experience and like planning for their first place and stuff is like definitely also a favorite of mine. But just to add on to that, I really liked seeing them from like the perspective of like an outsider, kind of in a way, because it's like I'm also an outsider to their relationship, like looking in, and I just thought it was really cute to see that like other characters can also observe how cute they are together and like how
Yeah.
perfect they are for each other. I just thought that it like really warmed my heart because I was like, they are so cute together and they are so perfect for each other. Like, I just loved it.
It was definitely one of those scenes where you could tell it was like in his perspective, whereas like the other ones, obviously it is like us looking in on them, but I felt like we were following Urasawa more through it and not like
Right.
the two as they're doing it, which was a nice thing. So I'm glad you caught that too.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that aspect, and also another addition is in particular that little soap rack that she wanted. It was such a simple request, but that also melted my heart.
I know
So
if
cute.
that happened to me and it was just like that small thing that I like mentioned in it or whatever, I would just melt right there.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah, I think another thing is like also like before that scene we didn't have a lot that made like Asako a little bit of a weirdo, but like you know Kutar with like his like a smell fetish whatever has been like the pivotal weirdo of the series. Like that's the weird thing. But like Asako pulling out the tape measure and reading all the fine print and all that stuff and being like very detail oriented, it fits her character, but it's also really weird. And it
And
kind
see
of like
accountant in her.
shows more of like why they're such a good match because they both have their weird little quirks, but they accept each other anyways.
Hmm.
Because instead of being like, why is she pulling out a tape measure? He's like impressed that she like read the fine print and is doing all those little details. He's like, wow, she's really thinking this through. But that's just what I saw from that scene.
Yeah, 100%. It's so cute. There's nothing else I can say about it. It's just so cute. Them being together, them planning for their first house, and their little quirks coming through. Adorable.
It makes me excited for like the next volume because I'm guessing they will be in their new place and I want to see it.
Yes, yes. Seeing them living together and that whole dynamic, I just know is going to be amazing for me.
So what was your other favorite part then, if you have two, Emily?
Yes. So my other favorite scene was when Asako brings Kotaro to like the restaurant that her brother works at. Um, because it was just such a such a cute scene to me, like seeing her brother get really defensive and protective over her, and seeing like Kotaro be so nervous about like meeting somebody in her family. Because I think I can't 100% remember, but I think he had mentioned like he'd never had to do that before. Like, so I just
So
thought,
yeah.
yeah. So I just thought that was really cute because he was trying his best to like make a good first impression, and the brother was just not having it. He was like, "I'm gonna put you to the test," and it just made me laugh. I thought it was really cute, and plus I like Asako's brother, so
I mean, that was a good scene. I was just like I don't have any siblings myself, but like I feel really protective of my friends. And so like when they get into new relationships, I like feel like I'm her brother and like putting
yes,
people through the ringer and testing them and I'm like, are you good enough for them? Are you sure? So I was like, yes.
relatable.
Yes. Make them sweat.
Well, so let's talk about then what are your guys' favorite characters of the series?
Hmm.
I mean, I would have to say Kotaro and Keita, the brother. Um, they're my favorites, probably. I really like everybody though. Everybody is
Mm-hmm.
really well done, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not anyone I don't like in Sweat and Soap, which can be pretty rare for like a book.
Rare, yeah.
Especially like a
Um,
shoujo type book.
yeah. But I really love Jin, who's Asako's boss, and I love how much like he cares about her and is like willing to give her advice and like go to like lunch meetings, whereas like their meetings of just like her relationship and like giving her advice and things like that. But I de like her brother would definitely be the close second, just for reasons
Mhm.
of like me relating to him.
The boss is a really good choice, I
Yeah.
think too. And I remember like the first time we had recorded this, like he was just not somebody that I considered even. I didn't think about him as like a favorite, but looking back on it, like he is such a good
He is a good
character and it
wingman.
yes, he's so good and it always makes me so happy to see people that just like genuinely love and care about Asako and you can see that in their
Mhm.
interactions with her and they're like it's just so cute to me because especially given her background and like how insecure she is and stuff, it just always warms my heart when there are characters that are just so nice to her and it makes me happy.
hmm And I think it's like extra interesting that like I say and like we kind of agree that there's nobody that you really don't like because I think
Right.
Sweat and Soap does a really good job of displaying like real life situations and like showing that there can be drama, but like it doesn't just like revolve like become who people are. Like specifically for the scene of like Kotaro's like assistant, like his junior
Mm-hmm.
Kirosu, she like has a crush on him, and he doesn't really come out with saying that he has a girlfriend right away, but she ends up finding out. And obviously, if you have a crush on someone for like ever, it's heartbreaking to see like that they're not interested in you and that they have someone else. And most of the time, things will just turn that as like the love triangle drama that she's
Mm-hmm.
the love rival and we have to hate her now because she's just going to be a bitch the whole time. But like,
Yeah.
no, she's like, okay, I'll have my good cry. I'll get over it, and now I support you guys. And I'm like, that's nice because yeah, there could be people in real life that do hold grudges or are upset, but most of the time you just get over it.
Yeah, you want that
Yeah,
person to be happy.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. Like, one trope that does happen a lot is, like you said, like the love triangle, and it's so easy to like villainize the person on the other side of it. But it's like in real life, everybody has feelings and emotions, and like you're not a bad person for liking somebody that is maybe unattainable or whatever. So I agree with you. Like I really liked the fact that they didn't make her like this horrible person that is like just out to destroy their relationship or something. Like she's just a young girl that has a crush, you know? And
mhm.
I like the way that they dealt with it. So,
Yeah, they could have like dragged all of the drama out like every other series usually does, but they keep all of the problems very normal and they keep like I guess grounded in reality where it's like
hmm
problem comes up, you solve it and that's it. Sometimes it's not the best conclusion like that you want, but it's solved. It's end of story.
Yeah.
It's not this drawn out drama where it's like, this bitch, I'm gonna go ruin her life. It's like that doesn't happen outside of like the Jersey Shore. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I'm stuck with like 2 volumes of the same drama, and I'm like, just get over it.
Yeah.
It was short and sweet, and went like, we're over it. On to the next.
Sweat and Soap's
And
new name. Short and
I
sweet.
think that's something that's worth mentioning too, as like not a favorite scene of mine, but just a favorite aspect of the series is that it's definitely one of the few that I've read that is very like realistic to like what an adult relationship is like, and they don't rely on like petty drama to carry like a bunch of volumes, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Mhm.
have a problem, they talk about it, and it's like it's solved. So I love that. I thought it was super refreshing.
And it's interesting because we're talking about two different types of like office romances, and though Watakoi will get into it, and it's like it's realistic in the sense of like some parts of the relationships, like their hobbies and stuff like that. I think Sweat and Soap does a way better job of showing like what real office romance would be like. You know,
Definitely.
Asako is troubled. She doesn't want to kind of show her relationship out in the open. So Kotaru, he's like, all right, well, then I'll keep it a secret for as long as you want. Like, I'm fine with it, but if you're not comfortable, then I'm not going to do that. And that's all about what relationships are. They're compromises. But they do it very, like, almost, like, subtly, where it's, like, you don't even notice that it's kind of, like, a reoccurring thing where he's just keeping it a secret. Rather than, like, I think a little bit is if she's around, he kind of, like, looks to her. It's like, what should I say? And she kind of panics, and then he like says whatever. But my favorite character, going back to that, is definitely Asuka's boss, because best wingman
Yeah,
ever.
Jin.
Especially like the scene where he sees them on the retreat, and he ends up bringing a passed out Kotaru back to his room. That was like the best like wingman move he could have ever done, because like if anybody else had come by, she was screwed. It was out in the open right then and there. But he was like, I just want details later, all right? But,
Yeah, well, wasn't that like how he found out?
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have had his suspicions, but like he was like, all right, I got this, but I want to know all the drama.
Right.
And it just fits his character so well.
I really like it. And I think especially too, just like considering tropes is like the fact that I think a lot of the time it's easy to like also make the boss like kind of maybe not a bad character, but like they're usually more tough, or they're not really relevant, or they're just kind of a side character that is just there. But I do like that the boss was like an actual friend to her, and like he had a personality, because it's like usually from what I can think of, like I haven't really seen that either. So
I think one issue with Sweat and Soap is they might be taking the story a little bit too fast for them to develop the characters they want. Like Atsuko had a coworker that we kind of saw that has like a little bit of a crush on her. And we could have probably seen him develop more feelings and been more of a love rival in that sense as well. But then they decided to kind of like side track him and go with Kurisu, which is fine. Kurisu was a good character, and the way they went about doing those issues, I don't think that putting another character through the same types of issues would have made much sense, because we
I think the mangaka. I think they didn't want to like, you know, do the same trick in the book.
right.
I think it was just supposed to be a cute little thing to make Kotaro sweat a bit,
I
just
think
a teeny
But
bit.
I think it
did
was
they completely shut that down though? Because like, you can
I don't
correct
think
me if I'm
so.
wrong.
yeah,
It's been
because
I think that it's possible it could come back a little bit later if they wanted to bring it in, because like I don't think that they completely like shut the door on that guy.
it's
From what I
possible,
remember.
but like they kind of like confirmed where like Asako and Kotaru are now like about to live together, so it's
No,
quite
I know
clear
that,
he
but
has no chance, and I don't think
but
they're gonna
well,
bring him up after
I
that.
think, but the thing is that like as a reader, you always know that the love rival is not gonna be like realistically. Do you think that like the his assistant was gonna like come in and like she was gonna be the new main girl? Like obviously,
No,
right? So it's like I think that they could bring him back just for some cute like love triangle ish like scenarios, but like not really because like we know that she's gonna stay with Kotaro. It's not like he's a viable candidate.
I feel like he's honestly just there for comic relief purposes to
yeah,
just make it funny.
Yeah,
That like we know what's happening, and then obviously he's acting shy, but it's funny.
yeah.
But I think that's as far as like his character is meant to be, personally.
I think if we do see him again, it'll be like some kind of like fake drama where like he'll be out with a lunch date with her or something like that for work or something, and
And
then
then there's a
it'll be like a
misunderstanding.
misunderstanding. It'll be like one of those tropes. But I think the only other way they could have put his story in there is if during Karisu's, if they also had him going after Asako and kind of like doing like the tag team
Mhm.
dynamic, and then
Right.
cutting off both of those like right then and there. But I only see those as the two plausible ways that they put him in. Otherwise, I think they just kind of they wanted this character to be here, but then they just couldn't find a spot for him, and they kind of just threw him away, which is a
Okay.
shame. But you know, when you have a story that like you want to tell, and you find elements that are just like it doesn't matter to the story, it's good to get rid of those. You should get rid of those. It just
Right.
saturates the story. But I thought I'd just comment on that.
I don't know. I think we're just overthinking it.
Maybe
Truly, I look
Trying to
forward
make
to
him a bigger
seeing where
character
it
than
goes.
he actually
Yeah.
is.
I mean,
Um,
maybe he will be. Who
the
knows?
true underdog.
Yeah.
I know
I
we
would.
talked about a lot of stuff that we liked. Was there any like least favorite parts of the book? Whether it be like an actual part in the book or like structure of it. Was there anything that like stuck out as an issue to y'all?
Yes. Yeah, so I love so many things about this, and but I only had one major like scene that like was a little bit not like yeah, like problematic for me. Um, and it was in the first volume, like about halfway through, I think, when they Asako and Kotaro go on their first date. And the whole time he's just thinking about smelling her and he's not like paying any attention to her, like getting to know her. And he's just like
Oh,
in
I
his head
remember you
about thinking
talking
about
about that.
smelling her. Yeah. So that bothered me and it still bothers me. I think, in that moment, because I had reservations coming in Sweat Soap, like before I read it, I was like, this seems a little creepy. Like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. Um, and when I read that scene, I was a little bit worried that like, okay, this story is like confirming my worst fears that like it's just about this like weird smelling fetish and that's all it's going to be about, which obviously was not the case. But that scene did kind of bother me because I just felt like uh he was more focused on her scent than her, and like it just kind of was like objectifying. I felt, but it's fine now. I love the series, so it's okay.
He
But
pushed
the scene
through.
did bother me. Yeah, the scene did bother me a little bit.
I
Well,
think.
my
Well, so let me comment on that scene real quick. I
Okay.
think I also don't care for it as much, but I think it helps with developing him as a character. I think it was good to kind of show him as, he started out really lusting after her rather than loving her, and now he's slowly but surely started to love her more than he's lusted after her.
I think actually that is a good point. That I didn't necessarily think about. I think I just was like a little bit like, I hate this. I hate that he's doing this, but it does make sense. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't know her really at that point. So, that's fine. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it definitely does, like when you compare that scene to like later on and how cute they are together. You do see a lot of growth there, but I think in a way that almost makes me more upset too, because I'm like, how could you, Kotaro? How could you be so disgusting in this moment,
but
know?
He developed, he changed, so it's okay.
Right.
So, Danielle, what was your favorite scene? I apologize for interrupting.
Well, least favorite. No, it's okay.
Oh,
I was just gonna
least
say
favorite.
mine came before that, where like my least favorite was just how strongly he like came on to her and just like smelled her in the middle of work.
Yeah.
Like that's how their first meeting was. Because if someone did that to me while I was just like chilling in the lobby at work, I would punch them.
Yeah.
I would be like, please get off of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you should, that's super creepy. Like, so weird.
Like, obviously we wouldn't have the book after that if that didn't happen. But me just putting myself in her shoes was just like, no, don't sign me up for this. I don't want this. Like, why?
The thing is that like there was there was like rumors of somebody on the train or something that was like smelling women, and she thought he was the guy. And that guy was portrayed as that guy was portrayed as creepy, but we don't get to know that guy, obviously, so who knows what his deal is. But
he's not good looking.
Right. So it's like, I mean, if you think about that, like that guy is portrayed as creepy, but like you get to know Kotaro and you're like, oh, okay, I like him. But like they're both kind of equally as creepy.
He has a reason.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. That is also kind of weird.
It's very minuscule because I also had reservations going into it reading that, like what it was about and how he had a strong nose and had a thing for smelling. But after that, I got over it, and I realized also, how good of a story it was.
It's not as prominent either later on in the story. Like the first volume is really
book one is the most.
Yeah,
it comes back every now and then.
Focus. Yeah, but it comes back in ways that are more in like normal almost, because like the way like the description even like portrays it as very creepy, like he's going around smelling women or something. But like later on, like the apartment scene, for example, like what Danielle brought up earlier, it's like it literally is just like he has a strong nose and it like does affect his everyday life because he can like just smell things that like normal people might not notice. So the way that it comes back later is really not as creepy.
Yeah,
I felt.
I think the biggest issue, so that was actually like a scene that I had a huge issue with too, is chapter 1 moves way too fast. I think it would have made more sense if she felt like almost sexually assaulted, because she was, and he has to like get forgiven and then they start to develop a relationship. But like the end of chapter 1, they are doing the do, and I'm like, what is this 180 flip, lady? He just attacked you in the workplace. Calm yourself. I don't care how handsome he is. That was scarring.
I kind of hate that you brought that up, though, because now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, is it?
He reaches
it just seems
up
kind
her,
of like she's a victim.
Her skirt. He literally he attacks her in like a corner hallway, and she literally says like her facial expressions are like of doom, and like she is going to be raped here, and
oh my god,
and then he like puts his hand up her skirt. He's like, I want more, and she's like has this shocking thing and runs away. And like she overhears the story, and she's like, just for a moment I was scared. How about for the whole moment?
Oh
and
my
then
god.
how is it like not even 5 pages later, you're like doing it with him. Like, what?
Right. Okay. So actually, I think because it's been a while since I read it, I forgot about some of these details, but you're right. Like, actually, flipping back through the scene, like, it is extremely alarming.
It is
Like,
not
it's
okay.
very creepy. I don't know. It makes me kind of. I don't
Chapter
want to think
1
about it
was
too much.
like, I didn't like him at all in chapter 1 because I remember that like vividly. So
Right.
when it was brought up, I was like, chapter 1, absolutely.
Right.
Because I didn't like, I
Understandably.
liked Asako's character because I felt for her. She was such a sweet character, but he is just a horn dog for like the whole first volume. And I'm just like, I don't like him for her. Now I do. Now he's fine. He has calmed down. But I
And
didn't
that's
like
on
him.
character development.
Yeah. But I did not like
He
him at all.
just
He was evil.
yeah. The mangaka definitely did a quick 180, and that's probably something they'll have to work out in the future for like their next book, how fast they develop a character.
Yeah.
So was this
So,
book a race to the end kind of book for you, or was it more of a slow burn?
It was a race to the end for me. I think I might have brought this up once or twice before in podcast, but I got the first 3 volumes because Amazon kept recommending it to me, and I saw them in my local comic book shop. I was like, all right, clearly the world wants me to read this stupid series. It looks real weird, and it looks like hentai, but I'll read it. And so I grabbed up the first 3 volumes, and I read the first volume, and I didn't like Kataru, but I liked Asako so much that I was like, and I liked that one pivotal scene in chapter 5. So I was like, all right, I'll read volume 2, and I sped through volume 2, and then I sped through volume 3, and I was like, oh no, I don't have any more. And I was like, it was like months before volume 4 was gonna come out. I was like, great. Now I wait.
I also raced to the end. I got all 4 volumes the same day, and I read them in one day. And then I had to wait for the 5th volume to come. But yeah. Or I guess how many volumes are there now?
It's
It's
5.
5
Oh,
as
5.
of right
Okay,
now.
yeah. I was like looking at my stack, and I'm like, hold on a second. Yeah, so I read them all in literally one day, and I am so excited for the next one to come out.
Yeah, I definitely, so I wanted to race to the end, but because of like my constantly long like to be read list and not wanting to catch up too quickly, I usually try to spread out my reading. Because I hate like obviously getting to the end of a series and then having to wait like 3 months for the next volume, but it's just so good that I needed to find out what was happening next, so I'm really excited for volume 6. I
Yes.
just need it to come out.
I have it pre-ordered.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm waiting.
He's like, I'm ready.
Yes.
I don't even know its release date. I have to look it up.
It is, well, it was March. It was supposed to be March 6th, I think, and then it was pushed to April 6th. So
Okay.
That
sad. I was so sad. I was so angry. Like, I was literally, because when
just
I
like
pre-ordered
book
it,
5. Book 5 was supposed to come out December, like around
Yeah.
Christmas or whatever, and then it got pushed back
Mhm.
to like beginning of January, which is like
Yeah.
still the holiday season. But book 5, literally they had like Christmas and New Year's
Christmas.
together, and I was like,
Right.
it would have been so nice to read in December.
That disappointed me so much. I was like, even if you're gonna have delays, like get that one out. Like screw every other series. Get that one out on Christmas
On time.
or New Year's, somewhere around there. You gotta do it. And they just didn't. They did it right after, and I was like, you missed your chance, you idiots. But that's Kodansha.
Yeah.
So, did you guys like the heat level of the book?
After volume 1, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I
End of volume 1.
I didn't feel like it was, and maybe it's because the scenes are so intimate and they're like, Dom had mentioned earlier, it's like realistic, I guess, to like a real
Yeah.
couple. I didn't really feel like it was like, oh my gosh, this is so sexy, like I love this or whatever. It didn't feel like that. It felt a lot more intimate than like spicy or something. So I liked the heat level. It was fine. Like I think it was good for the series. But would I like say that it's like a like I wouldn't recommend this series as like if you're looking for
Smut.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it in that way. It's not really. It doesn't give me that vibe, you know.
I think after volume 1, it it's less sexual and more romantic in that sense.
Right.
What about you,
Yeah.
Danielle?
I mean, I agree with y'all. Like, I mean, like, there's heat to it, but like, it's just like showing like the steamy side of a relationship, whereas they show you like 3 panels of like them obviously going to do it or whatever, and then
Mhm.
it's next scene. So it's not like you're trying to read like anything too dirty, but like
Yeah.
if you want that little spice, you got it.
Yeah. I think it's really more for like realism's sake. Like it's just like, okay, so real couples have sex, so let's put this in there as like a realistic element. But it's not like if you're searching for smut, like you're not gonna this is not the series for it, you know?
Yeah.
Another element I do like is like uh they don't wait till like they're officially dating to start doing stuff. Like a lot of couples, they'll be doing stuff before they're not like waiting like to handhold until they're officially like going out. Like most Japanese romance stories seem to do.
Hmm.
They're very realistic, and it's like they're adults. They can do it if they want, and that's okay as long as it's consensual. It's good.
Well,
Um,
it wasn't
it
consensual
wasn't
originally,
consensual, but look,
but
it
yeah,
got
you know, we'll just
consensual.
gloss over that, right?
Time they
Yeah.
did it, they wanted to do it. Wait, don't say it wasn't consensual.
Well, yeah, when they did it, it was consensual, I will say, but like initially, the sexual
When
advances
he was
were
like
not.
Was not.
putting his hand up her, like on her ass, like in the middle of a workplace, that was not consensual. She pushed him off and ran away in
Right.
fear. Like she
Okay.
was like, he was hot, but I was terrified.
Oh no. Right. Um. Yeah. It's so weird. Um. But I wonder. I kind of do wonder. Like you brought up, like the element of realism, and it's like I agree, but then I also kind of think like, especially in Japan, like I wonder how normal that kind of dynamic is. Like I'm not saying it isn't because I have no idea, but I'm just wondering because I know that like people in Japan are a lot more like shy and reserved, and I know like right now like dating and like stuff is like a
Well,
kind of
so
problem.
yeah,
But
I'll
I'm
say
just like,
birth rate
I
in
wonder if that
Japan is
actually happens.
going down, and
Yeah.
it's been like there's reports of like the Japanese government like paying people to have sex, uh, just so they could not dwindle out to a point that's really bad for their country. Um, but I think it's an individual basis like any other country.
Right.
There's people that are more open with that and people that are more reserved. Clearly, the author is more open, so his couple is very open.
Love that.
So, was the couple's connection with each other believable to you guys? Like, was there a point in the story that it really clicked for you that they were a couple that you want to follow and believe in?
um,
Oh, like I don't know if I could say like there's a particular point at which it happened. I think, we've talked a lot about like the first volume having a few problems, but like I really think that I pretty much believed them as a couple like almost right away. Like maybe after the first half of the first volume, like after that, I was like, oh yeah, like I support them. I feel like we've talked a lot about it. Like I do. I think that they're perfect. I think they're a very realistic representation, minus the first half of the first volume.
Well, I think that the point that their real relationship really clicked with me was when they went to dinner at Kita's job.
mhm.
Hmm.
Um, and uh he like brings up how like his sister never asked for anything. So he was taken aback when when she asked like Kotaro if she could have half of his bread instead of them just ordering more bread. And he like kind of lets Kotaro know like what a big deal it is for her to ask something for herself rather than like for someone else while she's in the
Right.
bathroom, and like kind of like says you better appreciate like that gesture and how much that like means to both her and him. And I think Kotaro really like understood what he was trying to say at that moment and like realized that it was a big moment, and he kind of felt honored by it, and I thought that was like really cute, and I think it really showed like how comfortable they were getting with each other, even though it was like an uncomfortable kind of dinner for him.
Situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
No,
I thought that
actually,
was like a really beautiful scene.
that's such a good point to bring, because I actually completely forgot about that. Again, this is just the fact that I read it a little while ago, but like, yeah, I agree with that actually. Like the fact that she has so much trauma from her past and people like bullying her and her being super insecure and like kind of just wanting to people please essentially. And the fact that she could request something from him, I think, does say a lot about the fact that she's comfortable with him and she feels like he respects her and will honor her request stuff. So that's a good point. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think for me that scene was also like a big thing where like he was trying to get the brothers' approval, and that was kind of like a reassuring scene where like I was like, okay, I accept them as a couple now. He's kind of like matured to the point where he wants her family to accept him. So that makes sense. That's usually, I would say, for a real couple, that's usually like when you've gotten serious, when you're like, I want their family to like me. I feel like, you've that's when you've like gotten very involved. But I think also the series does something well where it constantly brings up that issue of like the vulnerability of their relationship, where like when he was talking about like living together and stuff like that, and she was talking about her concerns and stuff like that, and he realized he wasn't truly trusting her because of his past relationships and all of those issues. It kind of like reconfirms like he has to go through all of these steps again to kind of like build himself back up.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
So,
that was insightful.
all
Love
in
that.
all, I think we like this book.
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's safe to say we enjoy this.
Definitely.
10 out of
I
10.
will say it's become one of my favorites, like of all time. So
And that's coming from someone who is really on the fence about getting it.
yes,
I had to basically
Love that.
throw the books at you.
pretty much.
So
I
Watch
will
So,
Boy.
say, oh God,
yes,
yeah.
our next book. Apparently, we might have differing views on it and some
Yeah.
interesting takes on it.
So
Yeah.
uh, let's start with. Does anybody have a favorite scene from Watakoi?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
I think we have the same favorite scene actually, from what I can remember, but you can go ahead
So,
if you want to.
favorite scene was when Hanako loses her necklace, and
Mm-hmm.
she obviously gets really upset over it, and the reason she got super upset over it is not for like the the sake of like losing a necklace for like what's the materialistic sake, you know. Um she's upset because it's a memory of um Kabakura giving it to her back in high school when they started dating, and they've had it ever since because he has one too, so it's like a couple necklace for the two of them. So Kabakura, being the guy that he is, gives her his necklace instead, not realizing why she's upset about losing it, and what it means to their relationship. So then she just becomes even more upset that he would just do that because then he doesn't have his necklace on. And so they go through like this whole thing of her trying to find it again, and he's like trying to figure out why she's upset, but then realizing what he he did and like what it means to her, and he ends up proposing to her to make her realize how much he loves and cares for her. And then like of course after all that and like she says yes, they end up finding her necklace like wrapped in her scarf. So the two can have their necklaces back, but I just thought that was so sweet and like sweet for the fact that they finally got together, but also like really meaningful that like they had such a vulnerable scene because I think before then they didn't have that kind of vulnerability in their relationship shown in the books, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so that is also my favorite scene. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. I loved getting to see like more of their past from like when they were in high school and like the scene where he actually like did give her the necklace. I thought that was really cute. And then yeah, just seeing like what it meant to both of them, I thought was interesting as well because like for her the necklace was the memory. Like the necklace held all of the like special things that she felt in that moment. And like for him, he didn't really understand it because it was just a cheap, like crappy necklace or whatever that he bought in high school. But what mattered most to him was like the fact that she was happy and that like that's all that he really wanted to do for her. And like that's what held the memories for him, I guess, is like being able to make her smile. And I loved seeing that side to their relationship because they do have like an interesting dynamic of kind of hating each other and also loving each other. But I thought it was so cute. And then just to add on to that, because the other scene that I really liked was also involving them when they went over to Narumi. Well, whose house was it? It was Hirotaka's house.
Yeah.
Hirotaka.
And yeah, and they Narumi and Hirotaka like leave the room like briefly, and then when they come back, she's like sleeping on his shoulder, and he's like, "Oh, be quiet!" Like she's sleeping. I thought that was really cute, and I really liked the panel. I thought it was like a. So yeah, those are my favorite scenes.
So I think for me, first off, this series, I feel like the side couples really outshine the main couple, which is an interesting. Like usually, the main couple, like with Sweat and Soap, you know, they're the thing. They're what you. But because the series is stretched across 3 couples, as we know of right now, who knows? There might be more. I hope they don't add more. 3's a lot. But so I have a favorite scene from each of them. The first, my most favorite, because they're my favorite couple, is Kabukura and Hanako, and it's that same scene that you guys talked about. And I really like how he he proposes to her. She says yes, and I was like, just the satisfaction I got out of that, because I was just like, yes, I love you two both so much. Thank you for getting married. And I can't wait to see. I really hope they show her in a wedding dress and stuff like that. I want to see their wedding. If they skip their wedding, I will be severely hurt, disappointed, and betrayed.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think isn't the next volume cover them with their wedding?
It's either 9 or 10, but they'll both be included with volume 5 of this.
Yeah, I don't think they'll skip it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I have to stop myself so I don't read ahead to the scans. So I'm holding out to whenever Kodansha decides to put that next volume out. But then, so that's my favorite scene for that couple. My second favorite scene is for Ko and Naoya. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Naoya.
No. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, his nickname is Now, so we'll just say Now.
No, I just call him that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ko and Now end up going on a date, and my favorite scene is Ko's all dressed up, and like she's got a skirt on for once. It's a long skirt, but it's proper for her. and it's so much development for her character. And I was like, you go get him, Ko. Now, it gets, the scenes afterwards are like, upset me because it's just like silly tropes. But now is getting more interested in Ko, and Ko is kind of figuring out her own feelings, and I really like that scene where they come together and Ko's embarrassed, and I was like, no, 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 you look great, and they go on with the date, because it just shows that they're about to develop, and they're my second favorite couple, so I really hope they do develop. And now for my last favorite couple, the scene I really like is, we haven't really gotten any of Narumi's backstory. We know she's dated a bunch. Clearly from the fact that she was talking about her underwear in one scene where she was like, "Oh no, it's beige or tan or whatever. Let's wait till my panties are pink so I look better when we have sex." Clearly she's done it with some people, or at least it's implied that she has some experience, I guess. Though I would appreciate if she's still, like, Hirotaka is going to be her first time, because Hirotaka really deserves to be that first for her, because he just can't catch a freaking break. And I feel for him so much. But if Narumi, has dated all those guys and she hasn't, like, done anything, I think it would be a little bit weird by this point. But my favorite scene is Hirotaka's backstory, where we see him kind of piercing his ears to kind of be Narumi's ideal type. And I think that's just like, it's such a sad, like, backstory where, like, he's just like this, he really wants to impress her, and he tries to do so much, and then he just loses touch with her, but his feelings just remain the same, and he kind of, like, I guess, opens back up, and it's almost like his world, like, became, like, it went from, like, black and white to color, and that might be the influence of the anime, because I'm pretty sure the backstory was in black and white. But that scene really added a lot of emotional weight to Hirotaka's story, and I hope they do something with Narumi, because she is definitely, out of the six, the least interesting one.
Yeah. Okay, well, so I agree with that. I actually also really liked that scene, because I think, Hirotaka is definitely a character that's, like, very stoic. He doesn't really show a lot of emotions. Like, realistically, like, looking at him on, like, a surface level, he has pretty much, like, no personality. He doesn't seem to be interested in anything other than video games. Like, he's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, peeling back those layers and seeing that, like, he really was trying to kind of change himself in little ways to, like, make her notice him and make himself seem, like, more interesting to her, I thought was really cute, and it added, like, a lot of depth to his character for me.
I think without that, it's kind of like their relationship is, like, just that, because of how it started. It was kind of just like, it's just like they're friends, but they're dating. They're saying they're dating. But I think,
like, why don't you just date me?
Yeah.
Okay. Label.
Yeah, it's just a label. But after that kind of, like, scene, it becomes more than that. It's like there's a lot of emotional weight to this. And when I think, Narumi then reconfirms and, gets him earrings that match hers, I think it was a nice gesture where she was really trying on that date, but, like, it didn't work for their relationship. Those serious dates, they're not serious people. So it didn't make sense. Like, their dates, they basically reconfirmed, like, you don't need that kind of, like, grandeur. You don't need to go take your significant other to a fancy restaurant. You can just be happy like sitting at home with them and watching something or playing a video game or whatever. Um, so, you know, gives them more weight. They're still really lacking, and seeing as they're the kind of main couple, I really hope they figure out something soon. Though technically by the covers, currently in English we have two covers with Kabukura and Hanako on him, and only one with Hirotaka and Narumi. So technically, they're being outshined. They're no longer the main couple.
What bothers me about them too, like the status of like their relationship is like we don't really have like a timeline of like how fast we're moving or how slow. And so like I can only assume like how long they've been dating, obviously. But it's like there's only so long that you can just be saying you're dating someone and just, like be meeting up to like play video games at your house and like not go on one-on-one dates or things like that that just kind of bother me, because like I've been in relationships before where like I've had that and like obviously I was like maybe like in high school or whatever, and like you could say you're dating or whatever, but then all you just do is just say that and like maybe just interact with your group of pals, but you don't have that like intimacy of like being in a relationship. And I'm not saying intimacy as in like physical intimacy, but um like the mental and like um the emotional kind of intimacy that it just makes me hard for the like it makes it hard for me to um really root for them or like relate to them. I do like them and I want them to grow more, but I get more of like the emotional like intimacy and like connections between like Hanako and Kabukura than I do them two, which is kind of sad because they are targeted, like we are seeing like shown them first to be our main couple, and I just want more from them.
Yeah. I agree with that. And we'll get into more about like how I like absolutely despise Narumi from like the very core of my being. But like I think a huge problem for me is like that aspect of their relationship where, and I think she's kind of the main cause for it, to be honest, but I really don't like the fact that I went into it thinking, okay, they're the main couple. And then like they have literally no, like barely any scenes that like have any development or like, intimacy. It's just very like lighthearted and like something that really annoyed me throughout the whole thing is that Narumi kept like reiterating the fact that like, oh, we don't actually like each other. Like we're not each other's ideal type. We're just dating until we can find someone else, basically. And that really irritated me because I was like, do you want me to like this couple or like what's the deal here? Like, should I take them seriously? Because it's really not working for me.
And
Yeah.
I feel like I absolutely agree with that. I think though we're going to probably see a change in Volume 5. I'm gonna call it now, because in chapter 59 or episode 59, we see that Narumi is actually trying to get Hirotaka's attention and like kind of like make him spend time with her instead of just playing his video games and stuff like that. Like page 200, the bottom panel says, "Hold on, right now, I'm his girlfriend, right?" like like she's like finally like realizing like she wants more out of her relationship with him, and he kind of like ends up teasing her where he like pretends to not pay attention to her the whole time, and she tries so hard, and she's like
Right.
about to leave, and he finally stops her. And I think the perfect like when I finally was like I had switched to like, all right, Narumi, you're growing, and I hope that 9 and 10 will end up showing that you've grown even more and will develop you guys more, was page 208. The top panel, her smile, where and then him just saying, "I'm totally defeated." Just kind of
I
like.
think it's
Go ahead.
Oh, you can continue. Finish your thought.
I mean, I'm pretty much finished.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I just think it's like unfortunate that it has to be that far in. Like we talked about it in our manga collecting video, where, if the first book doesn't hook you in,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not gonna be into it. But like, obviously, the first book hooked us in enough to keep reading it. But I wouldn't say the first book hooked me in with that to keep reading it, unfortunately. And like, I hate that it just takes so long for us to get like any of this like pulled out.
Yeah.
That it took so long. Like we got his stuff, but we start with her. So like I'm like, I want more from you,
Yeah.
Narumi.
I feel like they started with them to kind of add these other relationships, and now the author's like, oh shit, I forgot about them. My bad, guys. Let's go back. And I think it should have been do them, finish up their relationship, and then move on to the other couples. Like, give us like hints of the other couples, but I think they did it the opposite way around. I think they want to end with Narumi and Urataka with this series. I think that they're going to be the ending couple. And I think that it shouldn't have been that way. I think that maybe like our volumes 1 and 2 should have been mostly about their relationship, and then 3 and then have like hints of like Hanako and Kabukura in it, and then 3 and 4 be about them, and then have hints of Naoya and Ko, and then 5 and 6 be about them. And that would have made way more sense than spreading it out so much. And I think a big downfall to the series is it jumps back and forth way too much, and it's hard to keep development for these different couples when you're jumping so many times.
Right. Like, and I was gonna say, like, since we pretty much moved on to like our least favorite things about the series, like, definitely for me, I don't love like the episodic nature of it. Like, you'll be in the middle of like a really serious scene, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, like now we're just doing this little episode. Yeah, like this little funny like comedic thing happens, and then it goes like it'll do a few of those little episodes, and then it'll go back to the serious scene, and it really like takes me out of the development. I'm like, okay, I was really invested in this date that they were having, and then they like, sprinkled in some random like video game stuff, and then we're back to the date. Like, I did not enjoy that aspect of it, and it was a huge problem because I felt like it just
and I think
it just rushed everything. I was like, what is happening? Like, we're not getting enough information about the couples.
I think the issue with that is like it instead of writing itself to be a manga, it wrote itself to be an anime. And though the anime is great and almost you can see how the format works so much better in anime format. The anime is only like 12 episodes, so like it didn't even get that many episodes that it should have. Like
season 2 coming when eventually, but they did announce one. But
so
the anime was how I was introduced to Wotakoi. And I love the anime. I thought it was really nicely structured, and I really connected with all the characters there. And then when I switched to actually reading it, because it was only 12 episodes and I was like, I need to know more, I was kind of like, whoa, hold on a minute. And I'll admit, like, it was kind of a drag to like read it, mainly because I did see it, but like I just didn't like the structure of how it was in the book, that I just felt so scatterbrained. And I was just like, well, maybe I'll just wait till season 2 comes. But I obviously did keep reading it and then enjoyed it more from there. I think it does as the volumes come out, does have more of a streamlined kind of story progression, and I don't find the little like interjections too glaring as they were in the beginning. So it was very I don't know if it was it published in any like magazines beforehand, or was it
I
like a
assume
webtoon style?
I
Because
ass-
I
Sounds
feel
like
like that's how like the first volume was. Like I felt like it was just like a weekly,
Yeah, well, it
here's
probably
this little bit.
started out as weekly. Usually they start out as weekly, then they go monthly, and then they finally become volumes. Is usually how manga works. Um, that's not to say it can't just jump to volumes or jump from to
Yeah,
monthly or
I
whatever.
do know
But
that. I'm just saying, like, it's just something about it just felt like, how,
yeah,
like, when you buy a newspaper and, like, it would have, like, the Sunday comics in it or whatever,
hmm
and it'd be,
hmm
like, whatever little panels of, like, whatever's happening to this character this week, and then the next week they're doing something completely different. That's what I felt like. Like,
yeah,
it was like a Sunday comic just thrown
stuff to
in.
like fill space while you waited for another chapter to come out.
Yeah.
And I think I agreed with like I started with the anime and then I went over to where the anime stopped in the manga. And because of all those little cuts and stuff like that, I was so thrown back. I was like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening. So I had to completely start from volume one, which you should do anyways. But I really wanted to jump and see, this stuff that I hadn't seen yet. I wasn't really cared. I didn't really care about too much of the smaller details, which the smaller details because this is formatted in a way to be put in anime. Those smaller details really aren't there too much. I think that this series really like it was shown through the anime and you can skip to where it stopped in the anime just fine as long as you're not thrown back by all those weird cuts. Um,
I disagree with that part because there are so many little details in this book that there's like pages worth of like index in the back to give you like definitions and like explain to you what each little reference is. Like if you like anything otaku related or like video games or pop culture, it's like in there. And like if you don't know about it, you're gonna learn because it's in the back, which is nice. But then you're like stuck reading a bunch of stuff to like get the joke,
yeah,
you
well
know?
then it just becomes an encyclopedia. And I don't think the series really needed that. I think especially since it's called Love is Hard for Otaku, if you don't know all about like otaku stuff, you're probably not going to care about this series to begin with. If you don't know about otome games or uh, Yuri and there's video games around, Nintendo exists and stuff like that. If you don't know like the basics of like different types of culture, then you're probably not going to want to read this in the first place because it's all about like different
Well,
otaku cultures.
I mean, I don't agree with that either because then obviously people there are people that stick to their same genre, but I think there would still be people that don't specifically read shoujo that would still be interested in like maybe pick this up and be like, "Oh, this is interesting and a new cup of tea." That maybe this is how they'll learn about like MMO games and like the ins and out of that and oh, maybe I relate to this one little thing. Oh, this also seems cool. Let me learn about that. So,
I'm a big person on showing, not telling, and this series does a lot of telling. It does a lot of like it tells you all about what the different things mean, and it has dialogue boxes on top of dialogue boxes, and like some of these are just like oh my god, it's so much dialogue per page, and these volumes take so long to get through because of that. Um, and I just have a big issue with that. I guess is, um, I mean, especially like I get they want to put all of this information in, but there comes a point where there's too much information, just too much. I don't need. I can like Sweat and Soap. There's not a ton of dialogue, but you get the emotions across. You get what's happening across. But I think Watakoi maybe overstretched itself, is what I think.
All right. Well, do you guys have any favorite characters, least favorite characters? Anything you want to talk about there?
My favorite female is Hanako, because I think she's just an overall really cool character. I like how like strong she is, and yet obviously has a vulnerable side that she doesn't show too often, which I can relate to. That you're just like this, have this stronger personality outside, but then you're still yourself inside. But then for males, I kind of really like Hirotaka. Um, Mainly because like I do like that he was kind of like the stoic, like not much to him at first. Um, but then like seeing like his flashbacks to their childhood and every little thing that he did, I thought it was really sweet, and I relate to him as a gamer. So I think those are
Fair
my two
enough.
faves.
Hanako, I would say, is again my favorite as well. But like we've also, she Hanako and Kabugura are the ones that we've learned the most about. So I feel like they're the go-to because we know the most about them. So we can be emotionally um, hooked to them. Narumi
Yeah.
is definitely my least favorite because she's the least developed, and I'm really hoping for Volume 5 to cover her story, but at the same time, shouldn't have taken this long again. Yeah, those are my favorite and least favorite.
Yeah, so for male characters, I definitely like Nao the best, I would say. I really just liked his I mean I like all the guys to be honest. I thought they were all done, pretty well. Um, but he's definitely my favorite. I really liked his cheerful personality and I thought he was cute and I just thought he was like refreshing and adorable. And then for girls, basically just by default, Hanako is my favorite. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say about them, really. I feel like we've kind of talked about their characters a lot. As for least favorite, we all know I hate Narumi. I hate her so much. I think she's horrible. Um, and every scene she was in, I wanted to like gouge my eyes out. I really didn't like her. So,
Yeah, and I think in the
there's a whole backstory to that.
I think in the first one, I didn't agree with you as much, but like having to reread it again and again, I'm just like, yeah, I don't really. If there's someone I don't care about, it's Narumi. I just don't care. I don't hate her like you do, but I just don't care for her.
Yeah, so just to before we kind of wrap up and everything, like the reasons that I didn't like her, besides the fact that she was like we already kind of talked about it, she's very like underdeveloped, like she really it doesn't to me my perception was that she doesn't really seem to have many feelings for Hirotaka and stuff, and that kind of bothered me because I was like, why are you even dating him? And I just got like this very like selfish uh like interpretation of her character. I didn't feel like I don't know, I just feel like she only kind of thinks about herself. And then the other thing I really didn't like about her was just the constant like uh fetishization of like gay people and the fact that she was like projecting that onto her own relationship and her coworkers and like shipping them together and stuff. Like I just when I put that in perspective of like real life and I think about like how uncomfortable and creepy that absolutely like that's just so creepy and weird. Like, she needs to be stopped. She's a weirdo. Um yeah, so that really annoyed me and I just everything about her I just found so upsetting. And it's the reason I actually dropped the anime as well because I could not stand her and listening to her voice and like her character coming to life in that way. I just couldn't deal with it. So she kind of did ruin the manga for me
Fair enough.
in a lot of ways,
Not everybody's gonna like the same things.
of course.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining us today for drinks. I hope you guys had some engaging conversations of your own.
Make
and-
sure to give us your book talk suggestions if you want to hear us talk about anything else in the future. We are open to those.
Mhm. And let us know your feelings on these two series. Remember, you can check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and YouTube at Otakus After Dark. And thank you again. Bye, guys.
Bye.